Oh, sorry.
G'day everyone and welcome to this edition of the Be Mobile Show. It's your hosts Ollie and Brody, and today we are getting ready for strength training. We're talking all about warm-ups. So we want to hear from you. What sort of things, any special tips or tricks for the rest of our community that help you to get warm and ready for strength training? Brody, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good, I'm glad to hear it.
Good. It's a beautiful day. It's warm, nice and warm here in Sydney.
Yeah, it is. No need for a warm-up almost.
No, well, yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that and more. So strap yourselves in, folks, because any moment now we are going to get stuck into warm-ups. But Brody, in another piece of news, you may not know this about me, but before working at Be Mobile, I had a job on a factory line making little toy Draculas.
Yeah.
It was a very busy factory line and there was only 2 of us on there.
Yeah.
So we had to make every second count.
Not a bad one.
It's not bad, not bad.
I have heard it before, but you did well. Good delivery anyway.
Well, let's not remind everyone we're reaching back into the archives. Alrighty. Warming up for strength training.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. What is a warm-up, first of all, for those not in the know?
Yes.
Basically, any sort of activity that is going to help you prepare for exercise. So that covers a wide range of different things that would be considered warm-ups, whether that's a light jog. Some people might stretch, some people might do some massage. Okay, lots of different things that would be considered a warm-up, but we're going to talk about the best ones in just a moment's time. But Brody, why warm up at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the reasons for it are maybe not what you've heard before necessarily. We want to warm up partly just to make exercise a bit more comfortable. It's just a way of easing into exercise rather than just starting with the hardest thing. It can be a little bit less jarring a start to just warm up with something a bit lighter. And it's kind of getting your mind and your body a little bit prepared for the exercise that's coming up. And that can help, especially if you're dealing with some pain or injury or something. Often just getting it moving a little bit lightly first is going to help it feel more comfortable to then exercise.
Yeah. Now, it was previously thought that warm-ups did this great plethora of different things that were positive for you. But we now know that there's actually not a great deal of research backing those claims up. So we used to think that warming up was good for preventing injuries. Yeah. Limited data around this, particularly with something like strength training. Yeah. There is, I think, some research around particular sports where they do a specific protocol to warm up, and that can prevent things like ACL injuries in soccer. There's some evidence there. But yeah, warm-ups, not particularly effective for preventing injury. As Brody said, they can help you reduce the pain or the discomfort associated with strength training, especially if you're going from a cold state to vigorous exercise. Yeah,
so if you're at sort of a competition level of something, then a warm-up might be needed. Like if you're at a weightlifting competition, if you're about to do attempt some endeavor, some physical sport or endeavor that you want to win at, you're competing, you're trying to play a sport against other people. Those are situations where a warm-up's probably more warranted. But just for your everyday exercise, strength training stuff, then we don't have, as Ollie said, that strong evidence that it's really going to prevent the sort of injuries you'd get from everyday exercise.
Yeah, and in those cases where we're talking about really high-end performance, where say you're trying to lift the absolute heaviest weight possible, like in the weightlifting in the Olympics, then there are some performance benefits to warming up as well. But yeah, as Brody said, for your everyday training and strength training, you're probably not getting those performance benefit in the same way. You're probably not reducing your injury risk so much either.
Yeah. So what that leads us to is that a warm-up doesn't have to be all that complicated or advanced if you're just doing it for the purpose of just getting ready, a little bit warm, a little bit psychologically ready for the exercise you're about to do. So some of the things we don't recommend is spending a whole lot of time on your warm-up. You don't need to be warming up for 15, 20, 30 minutes before starting an everyday exercise routine, especially if you have limited time and you're someone who struggles to fit in as much exercise as you know or think you should be doing anyway. If you want to get a 30-minute workout done and you think you have to do 20 or 30 minutes warming up before that, that's now taking close to an hour, and that's just not that practical. So we'd rather a much shorter warm-up and then spend more of the time doing the actual exercise.
Yeah, and that leads into point number 2 around what we wouldn't recommend spending time doing in your warm-up. So that's anything like massage, muscle activation drills. This idea that you've got to turn on muscles is not a great idea. No. Muscles, thankfully, turn on by themselves according to the activity that we're doing. So yeah, basically we don't want to spend too long. We don't want to invest too much energy into a warm-up. Ideally, we want to just do something, do the bare minimum in order to prepare ourselves so that we're comfortable for exercise, and then get into it. So I myself, Brody, like whenever I go into the gym to do some weights, for example, let's say a deadlift or a squat, the first thing I will do is either like a body weight version of the exercise for, let's say, 10 reps or so, and then I will just slowly increase the weight until I get to those working weights that I'll be doing for my strength training.
Yeah, so that's one component of a warm-up, which is the specific to the application, specific to what you're doing. So that's worth doing. And then the other simple thing to do in a warm-up is just the general aerobic, just getting your body a little bit warm. So yeah, on the bike, jogging on the spot, go for a little walk or whatever. So warm-ups can be quite simple. A little bit of general activity and then a little bit of something specific to prepare you for what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And you'll notice if you're one of our members, that's generally what our warm-ups involve. It might be some marching on the spot, jogging on the spot, modified star jumps, etc., just to get you moving, get your heart rate up a little bit. And then we'll do a few movements that mimic what's going to come up in the workout. Some squats, some reaching over to touch your toes, some arm exercises, that sort of thing. And that's really all you need. 3, 4, 5 minutes of that before a strength workout is often going to be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to spend too much time on those. And even in our workouts, the warm-ups, they're not particularly scientific. They're just a range of fun little exercises that you can do before getting into it. Now, what about if you miss your warm-up? Well, it's good news. You're not going to break apart. You might find it a little bit uncomfortable when you walk straight into your workout space and you start lifting heavy weights all of a sudden. That's a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah. But you will be absolutely fine. In fact, after that first set, you'll probably be nice and warm and ready for the remaining sets.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Brody, how's your mind been changed on warm-ups?
Yeah, I definitely used to do the really long, complicated warm-ups. I used to spend like 30 minutes before a weight session. This is back in my early days, soon after graduating, and that's what I thought I needed to do. I do a lot of activation stuff, which at the time it made sense to me, but now I realise it doesn't really make any sense. But I would do, I've forgotten, so I've even listed them here because I forgot what I used to do. Yeah. Oh, before I'd do squat, I had to activate my glutes. So I'd get the bands around my knees and I had to make sure my glutes were active before I squatted. Yeah. And then before any upper body stuff, I had to make sure my rotator cuff was really active. So I'd be doing 15 minutes of rotator cuff exercises with a band. Yeah. I now think that's all very, pretty silly, not evidence-based, and not really a good use of time.
Yeah. And I think it's liberating not feeling like you have to do things before training. I know in my gym that I go to, some people think I'm a bit crazy for just walking in and going straight into my first exercise, albeit in a lighter fashion. But I think they're crazy because there's people, lying down on a massage ball or foam rolling for upwards of 30 or 40 minutes. And I just think, well, that's 40 minutes I'd rather be spending, watching Netflix or doing something else, potentially more useful, a little bit more entertaining there.
What about your runs, Ollie? You and I both run a little bit. Do you do a warm-up before you run at all?
Are you straight I put sunscreen on. That's your warm-up? Warm-up? Yeah.
I do. I've tried not doing it, and then I find I feel a little bit better for my runs if I just do a really basic warm-up. But it's literally a minute and a half, and I might do 30 seconds of lunges, some high kicks, some toe touches. That's it, and then I just start running. I just find that just gets me a little bit prepared for it. But again, it's not that specific. It's not that scientific.
I actually think those more endurance style activities like running or going for a walk, there's even less of a need for a warm-up because you're closer to your resting state. It's not like you're really lifting a heavy weight or doing something super intense. So just doing the activity almost warms you into the rest of it. Yeah.
like put it this, I would happily go for a 20, 30-minute jog without doing a warm-up.
Yeah.
If I was going to race in a 100-meter sprint final,
Yeah,
I'd be doing something to warm up before that. I wouldn't go from 0 to the hardest sprint I could do without warm-up. I think, so when you're pushing to the extremes of what you're capable of, warming up probably makes more sense. But just for general exercise, look, it's something a little bit to get you moving and feeling good is fine, but it doesn't have to be too complicated.
Yeah. Here's a great comment from Joan. Joan says, when you look at kids getting out of a classroom to run around in a playground, they don't warm up or activate their muscles. Grandson loves climbing, but doesn't warm up his arms or legs. That is a great point.
Yeah.
Same thing with dogs.
Yeah.
My dog wakes up in the morning
Yeah.
and he hears the biscuit jar.
Yeah.
She hears the biscuit jar.
Yeah.
And she's just a rocket.
Yeah.
From dead cold to just 100 miles an hour.
I'll tell you what, if a lion or a cheetah had to do some like resistance band drills with their glutes before they tried to chase down a gazelle, they're going to go hungry pretty quick. So mammals, we're pretty well adapted to just going after things when we need to.
Yeah, pretty robust.
Yeah.
And here Leslie says, I find I do a better workout when my muscles and limbs are more flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for sure, you're probably feeling a little bit more limber, a little bit more flexible when you've done a warm-up. That's not to say that you are more flexible, as in you can get more range of motion per se, but you certainly feel that way, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's good to. That's why we do a little bit of warm up, and it can certainly help. Yeah.
Yeah. Karen here says it's always been the thought that if you don't warm up, you will suffer an injury, or if you suffer an injury, it's because you haven't had a warm up.
Yeah. Don't
that's
agree.
True. That's what it used to be, but we now know that's not necessarily the case. And Carolyn says cats do it as well. Yeah, us mammals.
And most they do like a little bit of a stretch and then off they go. That's it. It's
Nothing to do.
Should we briefly mention cool downs or warm downs?
Yes.
Even the brief mention is even less useful.
Yeah.
In fact, it's just not useful.
Yeah.
You don't need to warm down or cool down after exercise.
I think how I approach these things, Brady, if you've got a limited amount of time for exercise, like we all do, because most of us would rather be doing something else, what you're adding onto your workout had better be better than what you're doing in the workout. So if there's no additional benefit from doing some cooling down, why bother do it?
Yeah.
And it's not helping with your recovery. It's not helping, reduce your injury risk. It's just adding time and taking time away from something else that's fun.
And if anything, it's just more load, more work for your muscles and joints. When you've already done all the hard stuff, it's
When we ask people what are the biggest obstacles for you to exercise, the biggest one is, or often the biggest one is time.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's
keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. Absolutely.
You'll see professional athletes do warm down, cool down stuff. But again, one, they've exerted themselves to the maximum in theory. They're obviously out there playing pretty hard. And two, I still don't think there's much scientific or evidence-based backing, at least not from what we've looked into, but they have the luxury of time and funding and resources and whole teams of medical staff supporting them, and they can do every and all little thing that maybe gives them a 0.1% benefit.
Yeah, maybe,
But everyday people, we don't have that luxury nor need to worry about that, because we're just trying to stay fit and strong and healthy to do the things we want to do.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think that's a useful discussion. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments, because now we are going to get into some questions that we have in the pipeline. This one here is from Marie, Brody.
Yeah.
Marie says, while doing the exercises in the 8-week program, how easy would it be to cause a disc bulge? A disc bulge at L5-S1 in 2005 is what started all my back pain. The pain was so excruciating, I thought I was going to be paralyzed. My wish is to get back to how I was when I was 49, which was 20 years ago. Okay, so how easy would it be to cause a disc bulge? What do you reckon, Brady?
Interesting. Few things to point out firstly. Back pain's extremely common. Around 90% of people are going to have episodes of back pain like this in their life. And it's awful, distressing, disabling. It can be very scary when it happens. In terms of disc bulges, around 75% of people your age, Marie, have a disc bulge right now and have no pain. Around 40% of people your age have a disc herniation. So when the inner fluid of the disc is actually bursting out through the side and have no pain at all, 40%. So the chances are you and almost everyone watching this video has disc bulge or disc bulges in their spine, at multiple levels. And that's not really necessarily a bad thing. These are all people that don't have pain. So really they are a normal part of life. Often when someone's had a bad episode of back pain, as you had, scans will be done that showed this disc bulge, and therefore people associate that pain, and often health professionals say that is the reason for your pain. But if 40 to 75% of people your age are walking around with no pain and disc bulges, then we must know that there's a bigger story to the pain than just what's going on in the disc. Yeah.
Now, all that is not to say that you very well may have had a disc bulge that has caused
extremely painful. It sounds like that's what happened to you, which does happen. So often they're not painful, but sometimes they can be, and it can be excruciating. And I'm sure it was a horrible experience.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess when you're doing your 8-week program, we would encourage you to try your best to think positively about your back. Think of it as a strong, robust structure, which it is.
Yeah.
At times it can be a very sensitive structure because, of course, you've got some pretty important infrastructure in there, and we've got some pretty, I guess, good security guards that stop us from doing anything that might potentially be dangerous. But of course, we know that exercise is a very safe, positive thing that you can be doing.
Yeah. So we can't say what are the chances of you having a painful symptomatic disc bulge with exercise, except to say that it's probably pretty low. Your back is more robust than you probably think. And when it comes to disc bulges, as we just said, most likely they're not painful anyway. And we're going to bring this little image up on screen, which just shows you how disc bulges actually heal by themselves and what that means. And also that whether or not it heals doesn't have to heal for you to become pain-free. So if we look at the column on the left, we've got the type of bulge. So the bulge, which is where it's just pressing out a bit, and the herniation where it's actually almost like burst, so to speak. You can see that these just, even with no treatment, without anything, they naturally heal on their own pretty well. So at 12 months, 26% of bulges, the less significant ones, have healed. But actually, the bigger the injury to the disc, the big herniations are actually much more likely to heal. 3/4 of them will have healed within 12 months anyway. So whatever disc bulges you had back then 20 years ago, there's a very good chance they're healed. But the last column is what's really key, because even if the bulge hasn't healed, both types, 94% of people are pain-free within a year anyway. So that really shows you that one, disc bulges are really common and do heal on their own, but two, they don't even need to heal for your symptoms to go away.
And Brady, I think it's important to point out here, that column on the right says likelihood of being pain-free within 12 months. Now people might think 12 months, I'm in excruciating pain, I don't want this to last 12 months. But I just want to remind you that that's pain-free, no symptoms. If you sit down and think really hard about all the different areas of your body, you probably actually identify that you've got some pain at the moment and it doesn't affect your life. So you will actually see a pretty steep drop off in your symptoms much earlier than 12 months. And then it's just going to take a longer time for that tail of symptoms to gradually go down to nothing.
Now it sounds like Marie's had chronic back pain since that since around that time. So yeah, pain doesn't always go away and people do develop this chronic pain. But if you are in that situation where you have chronic back pain and you have past history of disc bulges or not, the best things to do is to exercise, is to get fitter, get stronger, because that helps you have more confidence in your back and in your body and potentially make your back stronger and more resilient so it can withstand more stress and things in the future. So the key thing, as we often say, is to just start low, go slow. So Marie, we encourage you to keep going with exercise, to keep going with the 8-week program. Listen to your body somewhat, right? Don't do anything that feels too extreme or too painful for now. But if you build up gradually over time, the chances of having back pain or a painful disc bulge are fairly low. But if they happen, and you can recover and rebuild and continue getting stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be useful at this stage to go on to this next question.
Yeah, because it's a similar related question from Betty. So Betty said, Betty's a member of ours. She said, I've had fairly painful sciatica symptoms for the last few weeks. Pain goes down the left leg, especially painful in the thigh and behind. It often goes away by early afternoon, but painful through the early hours of the morning. I get up and walk around. Dr. Google is my source of information at the moment with conflicting advice. But what do you recommend for strength exercise and cardio exercise? I thought squats were okay, but not sure now. Dr. Google says no to burpees.
So the good news, Betty, is all those similar principles apply here with this discussion of sciatica pain. Sciatica, of course, it has a bad reputation as being something that's really awful, and of course it can be scary whenever you get it. You can worry about have you damaged your nerves, things like that. But the good news is that the vast majority of people will get better, or mostly better, by about that 12-week mark. Yeah. Now, it's good to remind people, I think. People often have this idea, and this was myself included until recently, that nerves are particularly fragile compared to other structures in our body, but that is not the case. They're actually a very strong, robust structure, and just because you've got a high level of pain doesn't mean you've caused some sort of damage to your nerves.
Yeah, the sciatic nerve in particular runs down the back of your leg. It is big and fat, it's the size of like a finger or a thumb. I remember in anatomy labs at uni, like being able to feel it, like it is this thick, strong cord of structure. You'd really struggle to cut through it like with like a normal knife and fork. Like they're extremely strong structures that can handle lots of different stresses. Yeah, they can get really sensitive sometimes, but it's never as vulnerable as it feels. It feels really vulnerable and sensitive, but actually it's way stronger and can handle way more than you think.
So Betty, as far as Dr. Google, you've got to...
You're always going to find conflicting advice.
Yeah, it sounds like you already know this, but you've got to take it with a grain of salt.
I was
just going to say, there's no right or wrong exercises. The best exercise is going to be the one that you can do and comfortably handle and stick with for the long term. Yeah.
So for things like this, as physios, we try and follow like the professional practice guidelines, which is what bodies put out based on evidence synthesis and expert opinion stuff. We have these clinical practice guidelines that say this is how we should treat these things. And for back pain and back pain with sciatica, the top things we should be doing is recommending people continue with daily life as much as they can. So don't just rest in bed all day or anything like that. Try and live your life as normally as possible. Do all the normal things you do. The guidelines say that people should do exercise and be as physically active as they can. But as Ollie was just saying, there's no actual good evidence that there are best exercises or exercises you should avoid. So as Ollie said, any exercise you can tolerate and comfortably do is good exercise, and you should be doing as much exercise as you can because that can help you recover faster.
Yeah, so disregard what Dr. Google says about squats and burpees. They're all fine as long as you can handle them. Just great. And we've shared that sciatica video in the comments there as well. But so hopefully that's useful.
So it's just what you can tolerate. You may be able to do squats right now, but not burpees. You might be able to do burpees, but not squats. It's it's whatever. It's pick the ones that you can do and stick with it and know that it will get better on its own.
Great. Okay, we've got some questions here in the comments, Brody, which I will read out for us. This one's from Trish. Guys, what about when you have done your exercises and you feel your muscles are tight afterwards? Is it a benefit to stretch at this time? What would you say?
No, I would say it's not a benefit to stretch. Your muscles feel tight because you've just worked and they've just been through a lot of stress. They're going to go through a bit of a repair and recovery phase, and that feeling of sort of stiffness or tightness is totally okay.
Yeah. Now, that said, if you do some gentle stretches or movement and you feel a great deal of difference, go for it. We're not going to say don't do it, but it wouldn't be our first port of call. Our first port of call would be just to make sure you're getting good recovery, i.e. good sleep, adequate protein intake and time, and those symptoms will settle down.
So you certainly can do it, but you don't have to. I've never stretched after any exercise I've ever done. So.
Is that right? Ever?
Except maybe at like rugby training at school when we were like all forced to. But other than that, I would never stretch after exercise. I'm done with the exercise once it's finished and I'm ready to move on. So.
That's right. Now, Tonya says, even if you warm up, how do you handle a cramp behind the knee? Yeah, cramps. Very painful, limiting thing.
Annoying.
Very annoying. So
cramps are funny.
Yeah.
They're tricky. We don't really understand them very well. So we don't really have a good answer, really.
No. Anecdotally, and you'll see this on the television, players playing rugby, at the end of a game, they'll cramp, and a trainer will run out and help them stretch.
Yeah.
And that seems to help.
That helps me when I've had a cramp. Yeah, so it's like you can kind of stretch it out in that moment.
Yeah.
But as far as like stopping it or what, I mean, I don't
know.
Some people are more prone to cramps, and when you're exerting yourself physically, you might get a cramp.
Yeah. So as far as what stretch to do, like any sort of like hamstring stretch. Where you're basically straightening the leg out and sort of leaning into that position.
Yeah.
That'll probably do the trick, I'd say.
Yeah.
That'd be what I'd try.
Or it could be a calf cramp. It could be the lower calf muscle, in which case up against a wall, leg out straight, put the heel down, get a stretch behind the knee. There. And just 20, 30 seconds a minute, whatever, to stretch it out. But really, other than that, there's not much you can do. Cramps are a sort of funny thing. We'd love to have a simple solution, but there kind of isn't one.
Yes. Okay, here's another good one from Carolyn. If you get sore, how do you know whether to heat or ice? I've been told to ice a pulled hamstring, but when I had a sore thumb a few years ago, I was told to apply heat. Yes, that is a very good question. Have you got a strong opinion here?
Yeah, our bodies are very, very, very good at maintaining a homeostatic temperature on the inside. Our body wants to be at the same temperature on the inside, and it's really, really, really good at doing that. If you put ice or heat on a body part, millimeters below the surface of the skin, your body is just at normal body temperature anyway. So icing or heating do very little at all to actually what's going on inside your body, other than messing with the temperature sensors on your skin, which can give you a bit of a different input to your brain, which can help with pain sometimes. So generally we say don't put heat on an acute injury that's like swollen. But other than that, you can use ice or heat or neither. It doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. We're moving away from, we don't recommend icing acute injuries as much anymore. You'll still see professional athletes do it on the footy field and stuff, but guideline advice now is saying that icing acute injuries isn't needed and doesn't really do much to help healing or anything.
Just helps with some symptomatic relief.
So either can help with pain in different circumstances. You can just try whichever and see what works for you, but neither's really needed or necessary or doing a whole lot.
Yep. Terry says, how can I increase strength in my back? Well, Terry, we've got a great video which we'll post in the comments. You can check out some of those exercises. Beryl says, I hurt my back and had sciatic pain, and which caused foot drop, numbness in my left forefoot, and took several weeks to recover. It was agonizingly painful. Yeah,
it can be awful. My mum went through it earlier this year for like 12, 15 weeks, really bad sciatica pain. She was in tears a lot. Like I saw how distressing it was for her. It's a nasty thing when it happens, but you recover. She recovered. Most people will recover. Sounds like Beryl did as well. It just sucks while it's happening.
And most people won't get those neurological changes like foot drop or numbness. But of course, if you do experience anything like where you're feeling that it's harder than normal to just get up a stair, like you're feeling weaker, or you are getting any sensory changes, always a good thing to get checked out by your local health practitioner.
Of course.
And Heather, doing my strength workout while listening.
Awesome, Heather.
As long as you're challenging yourself in that strength workout, Heather. But that's good to see. Great for you.
Good use of time, learning and getting stronger at the same time.
Learning and getting stronger at the same time. All right. Now, we just wanted to give a quick shout out, Brody, to Lisa, who's one of our long-term members. Poor Lisa's going through some tests at the moment, so we just want to let you know, Lisa, that our thoughts are with you, and hopefully all the best there.
Wishing you well from all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, that brings us to a conclusion for today's show. It is nearly 4:30. But before we go, we just wanted to share this beautiful little photo that one of our members posted on one of their lovely walks.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. A walk, it's gone. It's back. That could be a great walking track or a bike riding track.
I was about to say, the gravel bike out there could go pretty well.
That would be sensational. So hopefully that little photo just inspires you to get outdoors, perhaps the next couple of days if you've got good weather or on the weekend. Anyway.
If you haven't done any exercise today, do something. If you can't face a workout, go out for a 10-minute walk at least.
Yeah. All right, well, let's leave it there. We'll see you next week for the next edition of the Be Mobile Show. Thanks very much, everyone.